This week's Daily Race C has been a pretty chaotic one. We are not even going to talk about all of the chaos because these cars are really difficult to drive, and sometimes even finishing a race in here, it's kind of a tough thing to do. But just to improve your odds and eventually make you faster overall, I decided to make this video. So we are going to be discussing how to improve your qualifying time, and on top of that, how you can maybe improve your performance in the long race and save your tires to eventually give you a little bit of extra in the last couple of laps of each stint. So I think it's finally time that we begin. What really started this was my race with Pavle, and I just couldn't explain this to myself. I couldn't find a reasonable solution. Why was he so quick? I thought maybe there is something that I'm missing. And then eventually I found it out. So you can see that he's not going all the way to the middle of the track like you normally would in the time trial. Therefore, he's not pushing the tires all the way up to the maximum. So he's kind of having a little bit less speed through the corner, not really utilizing the entry. But then on the way out, he is pushing on the limit, which again, the tires allow him, because he's not pushing the tires in the middle of the corner but just on the way out, which again has a lot to do with the tire temps overall. So he's not pushing in the middle of the corner and he's focusing on the way out, which again preserves the tires, and in the long run it gives him kind of a better result. I'm not gonna say kind of, because he was pulling away maybe up to like 6/10 per lap, which is at this point and on this level, it's absolutely absurd. But at the same time, I wanted to improve and I wanted to kind of have a little bit better tire life so I can maybe reach his lap times and of course improve my performance in the race. Although the next examples are not as extreme, but they showcase how this really affects your tires. First of all, let's focus on the tires. I gotta show you the most common mistake that I see, and then eventually you will see the biggest difference that you can make in, well, especially in a longer race. So the conditions in this first try and the second try are gonna be the same, but I just wanted to show you the conditions and eventually what can you do and how to improve on your performance. So let's just have a little look at how this is going to look like. So I'm gonna step onto the brakes, I'm gonna make the car slide, then I will accelerate without thinking too much where the wheel is. Of course, we will try to accelerate more, we will try to turn in wheel more, and you can of course check out the tires and see what the tires are doing. And this is kind of a, I'm gonna call it kind of a messy lap, isn't it? But in theory, they should really warm up the tires and eventually make them unusable at the end of your stint. So this is my first approach, and as you can see, the tires got pretty warm, 80 something degrees at the front, which is not great, but in the first lap, you definitely want to save your tires. So let's try to do it again, but with kind of a different approach, and just to see what can I extract with, well, a little bit different style of driving. And maybe even improve your time, because it's going to be a little bit smoother. But okay, we're starting the lap, upshifting into fifth. Braking balance, all of the settings are the same, I didn't change anything. So let's go into the first turn and let's just check out the tire temps. So much easier with the downshifts, upshifting, don't turn the wheel all the way up to 90 degrees. We'll take it a bit easier here in these first couple of turns. And you can of course check out what the tire temps are doing. So just by not pushing too hard, you make the front tires cooler, and you can of course on top of that make a better line on the way out. So now let's pause it and let's see what are the tire temps. So you can see the tires are much cooler, maybe even a couple of degrees cooler, which again should give you better performance at the end of your stint. And this is something that I was really struggling with. If you destroy your tires in the first couple of laps of the race, or if you just, you know, get a couple of degrees higher than it should be, you will eventually have, well, completely red tires and completely destroy your performance in the later stages of the race, which again is crucial and should improve your pace overall. So next time you're doing this, think about how you're moving the wheel. How are you shifting? Are you upshifting too quickly? Is the car sliding? Is the car not sliding? Are you maybe turning the wheel too much? Are you maybe carrying too much speed into the corner? And on top of that, you can eventually see these tire temps and see where exactly you can eventually get more speed and more performance, because in the end it does matter a lot. I think the biggest improvement that I had was in this race with Kilian. By the way, if you don't know, Kilian is world champion in Gran Turismo, and I really tried to get the most out of this race. I know he was behind me and we were kind of running the same lap times. I can see that maybe in the qualifying he was, I'm gonna say, a little bit quicker than me, but that's all about in 2/10s, and with this custom slipstream, that's negligible really. So it was all about tire saving and eventually not heating up the front tires in the same way as I was doing before. So I was really trying to keep them as low as possible, reduce the speed in the middle of the turn, and of course focus on the way out. And of course hope that this is gonna help me in the long run, and of course in the later stages of this race. So I was focusing on not pushing the tires to the absolute limit, kind of maybe slightly reducing my steering inputs, not really braking how much I should be braking in the time trial, and then all of that started to play out. And of course I have to mention he pitted 1 lap earlier than I did. I was in the lead, he was in second place, and on top of that he wasn't really gaining that much on me, so I decided to kind of stay out for 1 extra lap and then focus on my second stint, which in this case you can see my tires are kind of maybe too hot, but that's almost unavoidable at this level and specifically with this car. So I was really hoping that eventually he will start to drop in performance, and I kind of started catching him. So he kind of closed the doors in here. I wasn't expecting that, but at the same time I saved it, and it was kind of a good try. But this is lap 8 out of 11, and in lap 8, especially when you change the tires, you have that 1 out lap, and then the second lap is usually your fastest lap, and it is usually in the 47th for me. And of course you can see that he did a 47.9, which means that he maybe did his lap a little bit too soon, and you can see how much he slides. Of course I think this was just kind of a warm-up race for him. He wasn't really pushing that hard in this race, but it just gives you a clear idea on what you can do if you just use the right lines, save your tires, and attack later in the race. So be patient in this first couple of laps when you of course start the race, and eventually at the beginning of your second stint, because you still have to pit once, and then you really start to see the performance drop of the cars around you. So not to even mention that he's a world champion and I'm kind of good at this circuit, but I don't think I'm that good. Maybe I am, but we can of course monitor that and discuss that a little bit later, or maybe even move that to another discussion. But the point was, save your tires in the first couple of laps, and then when the time is right, go for it. But only go for like reasonably good shot. Don't over risk the situation or overdo it, because it's really easy to lose the car in that situation as well. So my part of this whole thing was, don't push it. Now try to go on the outside, because 2 cars can eventually go on the side by side 130R. Not the smartest thing to do, but this is something that you can do, and especially if you're racing with the guys like this, or like he is. Late on the brakes he cannot follow that, because just his brakes are not good enough, or his tires are worn out, but he gets a pretty good exit out of the turn and follows me on the straight. I know I have to go defensive, but if I have the inside line, there isn't much that he can do. I mean, of course, he can try to go on the outside, but with worn tires, it's really not going to be much. So try to be late on the brakes, or as late as I possibly can be on the brakes. Third gear on the way out, and this is how I saved my position. So it was just about saving the tires, doing 1 lap extra, and eventually you can see the difference. So actually pulling away on the world champion, and then lap 11 out of 11, so you can see the gap is extending, or I'm extending my gap to about 6 to 7 tenths in this twisty section, or in the S's it usually goes up higher, maybe a second, and then on the straight it actually goes down if he has the toe. So the gap was in the end 1.2, maybe even 1.3 seconds. Okay, I'm taking this one very, very easy. I don't want to make a mistake. So he drops the gap, but it stays at about 1.2, 1.3 seconds. And I can only say that this tire strategy, or something that I copied from Polov, eventually helped me. So I wasn't carrying enough speed, or I wasn't carrying the amount of speed that I should maybe carrying in the qualifying, in the race. And it eventually paid out, and it was a good one. And of course, after a couple of days of trouble and finding the right conditions, I was able to get the 46.225. You can see, of course, Kilian did a 45.9 4.81, which is absolutely ridiculous lap time, although my optimal time is just around 46, maybe even dropped to 45. I would definitely have to check, but I had some sectors that were really good, but then of course you mess it up somewhere in the middle of the lap, or as usual in the last corner. So I'm very happy with this 46.225, so I just wanted to kind of give you kind of an insight on what I did and maybe where you can improve your times. Okay, let's start with this lap, which got me into the top 10 in the world. I just wanted to kind of let you know that I was maybe revving up the car maybe too much in 4th gear. So upshifting to 5th quickly kind of helped me to gain maybe 20 thousandths of a second, but not touching the curb to avoid additional rotation. 2nd gear very late, and you need to touch the entry or kind of the exit on the curb, otherwise you will not get the rotation in the corner. So a slight tap on the brakes, and you can see them trying to use the most I can of the circuit. So just using the curbs, rotation in that 2nd gear very early on the power, and it was a 4.89 in here, even though my optimal time was a 3.95. So I could have gained 1 more tenth, but just a little tap on the brakes. Don't make the car slide too much, but early, very early in 3rd gear, because you want to keep the car going. You want to get that speed on the way out of the corner. So hairpin, usually the most difficult part, just downshifting in the 1st, 2nd gear, and you can see that I'm finding that limit of grip. So early on the power, don't try to kind of easily get onto the power, like really push it and see where is the limit. Of course you can drop the accelerator a little bit, but of course you will lose a bit of time like I did in there. So rotation, you can see the car when you downshift really rotates. Sometimes you want it, in this corner you actually want it, and I think in this whole corner I think I lost maybe like 50 thousandths of a second. It wasn't much, but just the exit wasn't right because I didn't touch the curb at the right time and I lifted on the way out. But 6th gear, no lifting, of course. This is flat out section, and we were braking just in between the 150 and the 100, 125, downshifting into 1st. I kind of missed the entry into that one. Very late in that 2nd gear, which was again my mistake. I lost like 50 thousandths of a second there, but the lap was pretty good, and it was a 46.225, which got me into that top 10 position. So I'm gonna say that I'm pretty happy with the lap, although I could have probably made a couple of other adjustments, but it's eventually really difficult to put this lap together because it's such a long lap. But overall, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed in this video, and if you did, you can of course smash that subscribe button, or you might even want to click that like button as well. So all in all, I think I'm pretty happy with the result, and I really hope that you're happy with this video. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, bye.